Franz Kafka's tale of a man who wakes to find he has changed into a giant insect still has the power to shock and delight a century after it was first published. Many regard it as the greatest short story in all literary fiction. The main subject of the novel is the family relations and problem of a person's worthiness in the society. The main character of the story, Gregor Samsa, wakes up one morning and realizes that he transformed into a terrible bug. This fantastic change of the main character is just an artistic means which serves as a basis and background for other actions and other metamorphoses in his family and society that surrounds him. Thus, the central motif of the story is that the metamorphosis of a person and society. The Metamorphosis analysis essay shall examine the main topics of the short novel. The author explores and analyses such social problems as a person's worthiness and the ills of society, making use of a mixture of fantasy and reality, allegories, and analysis of the psychology of the society. The Metamorphosis provides a deep insight into the human soul and family relations in the middle-class family. Gregor Samsa is an ordinary salesman. He maintains busy life to look after his entire family, trying to live in relative prosperity and happiness. His routine continues until a day comes when he gets up to see himself transformed into a monstrous insect or vermin. Considering it a new awakening dream, he goes to sleep again after throwing a casual glance at his room and tries to roll over but finds it uncomfortable on account of his shape. He finds his new legs and thinks about his life as a salesman but then turns to the clock to see that much time has passed after he has tried to sleep. Gregor hears continuous knocking that keeps him on the toes. He tries to speak but nothing intelligible comes out of his mouth. He wishes there is a fix to the abnormal change. He tries to get out of the bed, fails, locking himself in the room. After his absence, his manager comes to ask the reason for his delay. Hence Gregor reveals the transformation as they wait for him to open the door. Strangely, no one recognizes him at first. The manager issues a threat about his unsatisfactory performance despite his repeated protests. Then all of a sudden the manager is horrified while looking at Gregor in his changed shape. Gregor tries to request him by catching the fleeing manager but injures himself, after which his father throws him back into the room with a cane and shuts the door. Exhausted with this way of dealing with people, he feels tired and goes to sleep that day. When he wakes up, he sees food in the room but soon comes to know that his taste for regular human food is not there anymore. He starts listening to the sounds coming from the outside. Finally, his sister, Greta, senses his situation and throws rotting bread crumbs inside the room that he finds tasty. This act of eating leftover vegetables and crumbs turns into his routine, while the rest of the time he hides under the couch to avoid frightening her. He senses as well as hears his family talking about the impending financial crunch and his mother's desire to see him, including the refusal from his sister and father to allow her to see him. Soon he finds himself adjusting to his new life comfortably and trying to explore the wall and the ceiling. Making it his new routine, he explores the room which his sister, Greta, changes for him, removing additional furniture from the room. He tries to make them keep the woman's picture in the room, but it is also removed. During the move, Gregor's mother faints. Finally, Greta calls him one day but he runs toward the kitchen. His father, who just enters the room, injures him by throwing an apple, thinking he may have attacked his mother. However, the situation clears when she explains it to her husband. The apple lodges on Gregor's back which become infected. The family soon decides to give him some room to move. They also open the door for a few hours in the evening. He, however, becomes worried at their relative poverty, while Greta's resentment also intensifies. The maid is gone, and the family is consulting to house 3 boarders, which increases his distress. During this period, Gregor also realizes that his family are doing much better financially. His father had some savings. His mother and sister are also earning well. When one evening, a cleaning lady accidentally opens the door, he sees 3 boarders asking his sister to play the violin. When they see Gregor, they leave without paying her. Greta, sensing Gregor's presence as a threat to the family's survival, tells the family to get rid of him. As he sees his father agreeing to her proposal, he also consents in his heart to alleviate their suffering. Therefore, he silently dies at night. The family discovers his body in the morning. His dead body is soon disposed of by the charwoman/maid. The family also reviews their financial conditions and notices that Greta is beautiful and will hopefully find a good husband. The family even goes on holiday after Gregor's death and decides to move to a different apartment. Whether it is a physical transformation, a general transformation, or a situational transformation, it plays an important role in a family's fortune. When Gregor Samsa sees himself changed, he feels the unease of seeing his family facing the financial crunch. However, he soon realizes that they have learned to live without him, for they have also transformed themselves, a necessity for their survival. Therefore, transformation, whatever it may be, is the major thematic strand of this story. After he sees his transformation into a vermin, Gregor realizes that his ability to communicate and think has not changed. This seems an extraordinary situation for him, for he has lost his identity but not the ability that he can clearly think and see others reacting to his situation and condition, yet he is unable to do anything. Soon his former identity of the traveling salesman changes into an odious vermin. With this transformation, he loses his identity and status of the breadwinner of the family. When Gregor loses his physical shape, he also loses his social circles. Even his manager comes running amok to get him back or issue him threats of sacking instead of finding the reality behind his absence and late coming. This social isolation, soon, penetrates the family circle, and the day arrives when Greta has to suggest that they must get rid of him or lose their lives in impending penury and hunger. Estrangement became the significant consequence of Gregor's metamorphosis. Gregor's appearance alienated him mentally and physically from the people close to him. In fact, the change in physical appearance imprisoned Gregor from the rest of humanity. Immediately after Gregor's metamorphosis, even his close family members could not stand his appearance. For this reason, Gregor had to remain indoors throughout with limited contact to the outside world. Gregor even had a self-withdrawal. He neither interacted nor showed any relation and continued hiding under the chairs every time Greta was in the room. His inability to speak further made him become at odds with the rest of his family members as well as other people. The mother offered an explanation to Gregor's workmates that he was devoted to his work and had not intended to leave the job. Human relations are a mystery that is evident from the loss of the status of Gregor Samsa from the important person of the family to a throwaway thing. Economic situation and status create human relations. Gregor Samsa is an important person of the family as well as the organization. However, he loses this status and relations when it comes to the transformation and loss of his former status and situation. Family responsibility is the thematic strand in that unless a person takes up the responsibility of himself and others, he is not worthy of respect and honor. Gregor Samsa loses his responsibility after he becomes a vermin. Hence, the family soon loses him after thinking that he is becoming a burden and liability rather than taking up the responsibility. Disability has its own ramifications, while survival of the fittest seems to rule the roost where Gregor has lost his ability to bring a change in the family. His disability has brought ruin for him, for the family faces the financial strain on account of his being a burden and nuisance for the family. Man becomes alienated from himself, his surroundings, and his family in a routinized lifestyle. Gregor Samsa may have suffered from a mental transformation, but he has lost his importance on account of his day-to-day routinized life in which he has no time to think about himself. His alienation soon takes his own life when the family sees that he is no more useful. Gregor feels guilt that he has failed to take up the family responsibility after his physical transformation despite knowing that it is none of his mistakes. However, this sense of not assisting the family during the crunch leads him to consent to his elimination from the scene. However, Gregor did not have a strong feeling about his physical transformation, rather he perceived it as a separation from the rest of his daily activities. Immediately after realizing that he had become a bug, Gregor reflected on how his job as a traveling sales representative has supported the family. Gregor became separated emotionally from the family when he later realized that he could not take pride in supporting the family. In fact, the distance from other humans created by Gregor's metamorphosis was an expansion of the separation he previously felt. The transformation of Gregor also throws light on the absurdity of the life of human beings and the choices a person has to make himself worthwhile in the family as well as in society. Gregor loses his identity, place, and status when his situation changes and sees this absurdity of his life from close quarters. Therefore, he thinks it fit to die instead of continuing living in this humiliation.